Let me start by painting a clear picture of my sister, Claire, not her real name, and our relationship. Claire has always been the center of attention in our family. As kids, she was the golden child, beautiful, charming, and always the apple of our parents' eyes. I was the quiet one, the nerd with my nose buried in books, happy to stay out of her spotlight. While I loved her as a sibling, our relationship has always been one-sided. I gave, and she took. Growing up, Claire had a knack for manipulation. She could cry on cue, twist stories to make herself look innocent, and somehow always managed to turn our parents against me when we fought. For example, when we were teenagers, she borrowed my savings for my summer job to buy herself a designer handbag. When I confronted her, she played the victim, said she only did it because she thought I wouldn't mind helping her look good for prom. My parents sided with her, saying, "She's your sister." That phrase has been thrown in my face countless times since. Claire married Tom about 10 years ago. Tom is the kind of guy everyone dreams of, kind, hardworking, and dependable. He worshipped Claire and treated her like a queen, which only made her more entitled. They struggled to have kids early in their marriage due to Tom's fertility issues, something Claire openly complained about to me. She once said, "What's the point of marrying a man who can't even give me kids?" I was shocked at how casually she dismissed his value beyond his ability to father children. When she announced her first pregnancy a few years into their marriage, everyone was overjoyed. Tom was ecstatic, and Claire basked in the attention. But something didn't sit right with me. The timing felt off. They hadn't mentioned undergoing any fertility treatments, and Tom had once confided in me that their doctors said natural conception was unlikely. Then came the New Year's Eve party 2 years ago, when my mother got drunk and said something that has haunted me ever since. She slurred, "Claire's not stupid. She wasn't going to stay childless just because Tom can't get the job done." I asked her what she meant, but she waved me off, saying, "Forget I said anything." That comment planted a seed of doubt that only grew as time went on. A few weeks ago, Claire showed up at my house unannounced. "I need your help," she said as she barged in without waiting for an invitation. She sat down and started unloading her drama. Tom had discovered she was having an affair. Apparently, he'd found texts and photos on her phone that left no room for doubt. When he confronted her, she admitted it, but tried to justify her actions by saying he had been neglecting her emotionally. Unsurprisingly, he kicked her out of the house, which belongs to him. It was inherited from his parents. Now she was in a bind. She needed money for a lawyer and a place to stay. She assumed I'd help her because family helps family. But here's the thing. I've spent years building my modest life. I recently bought my first home, a small but cozy place that represents years of hard work and financial discipline. I don't have the kind of savings she thinks I do. When I told her I couldn't help, she didn't take it well. "What do you mean you can't help?" she snapped. "You own a house. You can sell it and give me the money. I need it more than you do right now." I was stunned. Sell my house? My home? The one thing I've worked so hard for? "Claire, I can't sell my house. I don't have anywhere else to go, and I can't afford to rent and support you at the same time," I explained. Her response? She called me selfish and accused me of not caring about her or her kids. And then she dropped the bombshell. If I didn't help her, she would tell our parents I'm gay. For context, I'm not out to my family. Our parents are extremely conservative, and coming out to them would likely result in being disowned. Claire knows this, and she weaponized it without hesitation. She smirked as she said it, knowing exactly how much power she held over me in that moment. Her threat pushed me over the edge. For years, I'd endured her manipulation, her entitlement, and her disregard for anyone but herself. But this was a new low. I decided I wasn't going to let her hold this over me. I told her to leave my house and never threaten me again. After she left, I couldn't stop thinking about her situation. She was demanding money from me to support a lie, and I knew Tom was likely unaware of just how deep her betrayal went. I decided to visit Tom and tell him everything, not to hurt him, but because he deserved to know the truth if he was going to be financially and emotionally entangled with her during the divorce. When I arrived, Tom was understandably devastated. I told him about Claire's demand, her threat, and my suspicions about the kids. At first, he was reluctant to believe me. But when I mentioned the comment my mom had made, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. After some discussion, I suggested he get a DNA test for the kids. He hesitated, but eventually agreed. A week later, Tom called me. He sounded shattered. The DNA test confirmed that neither child was biologically his. To make matters worse, the children were fathered by two different men. This revelation broke him, but it also gave him clarity. He cut Claire off financially and decided to fight for full custody, arguing that he had been the primary caregiver and that the children would be better off with him rather than their unstable mother. This has been catastrophic for Claire. She's now homeless, without financial support, and facing the prospect of losing custody of her kids. She's been calling me nonstop, blaming me for ruining her life. According to her, if I hadn't told Tom about the DNA test, he would have continued to support her and the kids, and everything would have been fine. Our parents are furious with me. They've accused me of overstepping, ruining Claire's life, and being a traitor to the family. My mother said I should have just stayed out of it and let Claire handle her own mess. They've conveniently ignored the fact that Claire was the one who had multiple affairs and lied about the kids' paternity. In their eyes, I'm the villain for exposing the truth and making things harder for her. I'm torn. On one hand, I know I didn't create this mess. Claire did. Her lies, her infidelity, and her sense of entitlement are what led her here. On the other hand, I can't help but feel a twinge of guilt for the role I played in her downfall, even if it was unintentional. Was it my place to tell Tom to get a DNA test? Did I escalate the situation unnecessarily? At the same time, I feel a sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I stood up to Claire and refused to let her manipulate me. I set a boundary and stuck to it, even when she tried to use my biggest vulnerability against me. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for telling Tom to get a DNA test, and in doing so, contributing to my sister's downfall? OP's sister brought this entirely upon herself. She cheated, lied about the kid's paternity, and then had the audacity to blackmail OP with his personal life. She doesn't deserve sympathy for the mess she created. The fact that OP's parents are siding with her is infuriating. How do they not see how toxic her behavior is? OP did the right thing by telling Tom. He deserved to know the truth. And if Claire didn't want her lies exposed, she shouldn't have lied in the first place. OP is better off without her manipulation in his life. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. As a queer person, her threat to out you is absolutely vile. That alone would make her irredeemable in my eyes. Outing someone is never okay, no matter the circumstances. You stood up for yourself and refused to be blackmailed. That takes courage. Honestly, I'm proud of you for turning the tables on her. If she didn't want her life ruined, maybe she should have thought twice about cheating, lying, and trying to extort you. Good riddance to her. Everyone sucks here. Your sister is clearly the bigger a-hole here. Cheating, lying about the kid's paternity, and trying to blackmail you is absolutely disgusting behavior. But I think you went a little too far by encouraging the DNA test. While it's true Tom deserved to know, it feels like you were motivated by revenge, not concern for him. That doesn't make you wrong, but it does make the situation messier than it needed to be. Honestly, I feel bad for the kids. They're the real victims here. Not the a-hole. Your sister's entitlement is off the charts. Sell your house to help her? Blackmail you when you said no? And your parents are siding with her? This whole situation is insane. You didn't ruin her life. She did that all on her own. All you did was stop enabling her lies. Honestly, you've been more patient with her than she deserves. Go low or no contact with her, and maybe your parents too, if they can't see the truth. You deserve better, OP. Update. As many of you predicted, my sister, Claire, lost custody of her kids. Tom had overwhelming evidence of her infidelity and was able to prove in court that she wasn't fit to have primary custody. On top of the DNA test results proving the children weren't his, he also provided texts and photos showing the extent of her affairs and neglectful behavior. The court ruled that it was in the best interest of the children to remain with Tom, who had been their primary caregiver. Claire was granted visitation rights, and Tom isn't required to pay her any financial support due to the circumstances of their divorce. She is now in a much worse situation than she was when she first came to me for help. Of course, Claire blames me entirely for this outcome. To her, I'm the villain who ruined her family. So she decided to have her revenge on me by telling my parents that I'm gay. As expected, their reaction was not great. I received a tearful call from my mother that quickly spiraled into accusations and lectures about how I was living in sin. My father didn't say much during the call, but made it clear that he was deeply disappointed. The last thing my mother said to me was, "We'll pray for you, but we can't see you right now. We need time to process this. You've broken our hearts." It felt like a knife to the chest. I had always feared this reaction, which is why I hadn't come out to them earlier. Even though I knew their views were rigid, hearing those words from my own parents was devastating. Losing the support of my parents is painful, even if I expected it. Claire continues to badmouth me to anyone who will listen, but honestly, I'm done caring about her opinion. She's toxic, manipulative, and unwilling to take responsibility for her actions. I've started therapy to help me process the years of emotional aggression I've endured from her and to work through the fallout with my family. I don't know if I'll ever reconcile with my parents. Part of me hopes they'll come around, but another part of me is tired of living in fear of their judgment. I've spent so much of my life trying to please everyone else, and this situation has shown me how unhealthy that has been. To those of you who encouraged me to stand my ground, thank you. Your words gave me the strength to do what needed to be done, even when it was hard. I need to get this off my chest because I feel like I'm going insane. I married my husband just 2 weeks ago, and I'm questioning my marriage already. Some backstory. My husband, let's call him Mark, has 2 kids from his previous marriage. His ex-wife, let's call her Karen, has been a headache since day one. She goes out of her way to make things difficult for us, especially when it comes to the kids. She always drags everywhere as well, always attends all family gatherings and trips. Now, here's where things really started to spiral. Our wedding happened to fall on one of Karen's days with the kids. Despite my objections, Mark insisted on inviting her to the wedding. I agreed because I didn't want arguments and drama before our wedding. Wanted to enjoy the moment of preparation and at least once not to bother about his ex. Well, Karen of course accepted the invitation. She showed up with the kids an hour late, and instead of just dropping them off like I'd hoped, she stayed. She was dressed very fancy, which just felt like a slap in my face. I politely asked her to leave, but she flat out refused, saying that she was like family and had every right to be there. Mark and his mother sided with her, saying that she was indeed like family and that she wasn't going anywhere. I was absolutely disgusted by their response, because it was crystal clear to me what Karen was trying to do. I felt humiliated and betrayed. It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, and Karen had managed to ruin it. I couldn't help but question whether Mark truly had my back, or if he was still harboring feelings for his ex-wife. So, was I an a-hole asking her to leave? I think it was very disrespectful from her to show up late and steal the attention with her fancy black gown. I really hope that despite receiving the invitation, she would drop the kids off and would be sensible enough to leave. Well, if OP didn't want her husband's ex at the wedding, she should have put her foot down and not tried to kick her out from the wedding, as she was already invited to and attending. OP just looked stupid in my opinion, trying to kick her out because she wore a fancy dress and looked nice. If she wants less of her husband's ex in her life, she needs to be clear with her husband and stand her ground, because now she just looks spineless. OP should have more dignity and self-worth in my opinion. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Uber44 says, "I'm sorry, but your husband is a spineless coward for allowing his ex-wife to dictate the terms of your marriage. You deserve someone who will stand by your side and defend you, not someone who will throw you under the bus at the first sign of trouble. It's clear that he never valued you or your relationship and values his ex more than you." You Throwaway 23 says, "Not the a-hole. Your husband should have respected your wishes, especially on your wedding day. It's clear that his ex-wife is trying to cause trouble, and he's only enabling her behavior. You deserve better than this." You Just Sayin' 88 says, "I can't believe your husband and mother-in-law sided with his ex-wife over you. That's a major red flag right there. You deserve to be with someone who respects and values you, not someone who allows others to walk all over you." Update. First off, I want to thank everyone who took the time to read my post and offer their advice. Your support means the world to me, especially during this difficult time. Unfortunately, things have taken a turn for the worse since I last posted. After weeks of heated arguments and tension between Mark, Karen, and myself, Mark dropped a bombshell on me. He told me that he couldn't continue our marriage and that he wanted a divorce. I was blindsided. I couldn't believe that after just 2 weeks of marriage, he was already giving up on us. I begged him to reconsider, but he was adamant that his decision was final. Then, he dropped another bombshell, admitting that he still had feelings for Karen and that he couldn't ignore them any longer. Then I realized that my suspicions and sixth sense didn't lie. To make matters worse, I later found out that Mark had been secretly meeting up with Karen behind my back. He had been confiding in her about our marital issues and seeking comfort from her. It became painfully obvious that he never truly let go of his feelings for her. I felt like a fool forever believing that our marriage stood a chance. I was nothing more than a pawn in Mark's twisted game of emotional manipulation. He had used me to try to move on from Karen, but in the end, he realized that his feelings for her were too strong to ignore. As if the divorce wasn't painful enough, I also had to deal with the heartbreak of losing the stepchildren that I had grown to love as my own. Karen wasted no time in cutting off all contact between me and the kids. It felt like a cruel punishment for simply trying to love and support them. I've spent the past few weeks trying to pick myself up. In hindsight, I realized that I dodged a bullet by getting out of a toxic marriage with someone who never truly valued or respected me and loved me. It hurts like hell right now, but I know that I deserve much better than someone who would throw away our marriage for the sake of an old flame. To anyone else going through a similar situation, please know that you are not alone. Best of luck, OP. To begin with, I love my son with all my heart. But he blew up his marriage by cheating and has moved back home. I, 55 female, have 3 children. My oldest is my daughter, 30, then my twins, 25 male and female. My oldest just got married to a wonderful man. My younger daughter is going to grad school overseas, and that leaves my son. Let's call him Carlos. He has always been a handful. He got married when he was 20. His ex-wife had a 3-year-old daughter whom I love, and no matter what, I'm her grandmother. They had a child together, my other grandchild. He is 2. Virus caused a lot of stress in his life, and he works in a fly-in, fly-out camp job. He is gone for 2 weeks at a time, then home for 2 weeks. He makes very good money and enjoys spending it, maybe a little bit too much. Carlos cheated on his wife with a coworker. I'm not judging him, I'm not perfect, but he chose to leave his wife and children and move back home. It doesn't really make sense for him to rent an apartment or something for the 12 days a month he is home, so I allowed it. But he decided to be a jerk, in my opinion, and bring his dog with him. My grandbabies love this dog, but he's trying to punish his ex for telling him to leave. It is a beautiful border collie, and it is the perfect dog for their home. Huge yard, lots of walking trails nearby, even an off-leash park only a 10-minute drive away. I live in an apartment downtown. I am allowed a dog, but if I were to have one, it would be something sedate and non-shedding like a Maltese. I swear I tried watching this dog, but my son is irresponsible. He doesn't walk him much. He doesn't brush the dog. He is just holding on to the dog to leverage his way into his ex's life. The last straw was this last time off work. He was away for 2 weeks, then came home for 1 day before flying off to the United States for a vacation with his new girlfriend. So I called my daughter-in-law, checked that she wanted the pup back. She almost cried with joy, packed up everything that belonged to the dog and took him over there. My grandchildren were ecstatic. My son just came home for 3 days before he has to leave for work and asked where his dog is. I told him the truth. He is calling me an a-hole for giving away his pet. Also because I said if he tried to go get the dog and bring it back, he was not welcome in my home. Am I the a-hole? It wasn't his pet. He was never there and didn't care for the dog. It was a means of punishment for his ex. OP did the right thing. Pretty Royal 9021 says, not the a-hole in my opinion. He's only thinking of himself, not you, not the dog, and not his kids. Also, calling you an a-hole? You're nice to let him back into your home at all after that. Cutie Little Hellbeast says, I'm not generally supportive of unilaterally giving away someone's pet, but I think it was entirely justified in this case. He brought it into your home without asking you, and he's literally never home to take care of it. He was intentionally making you, the dog, and his own children upset, just to get back at his wife for not putting up with his cheating. Good job, Grandma. Not the a-hole. Bitter Conflict 4089 says, not the a-hole. Your son is an a-hole. Honestly, it does make sense for him to pay rent for a few days per month. Consequences for his horrible behavior are not a terrible thing. Jake, my spouse's emotionally spoiled golden child older brother. Sandra, Jake's mean girl wife. It all started when my now husband and I got engaged in September of 2019. We promptly began planning our wedding since we didn't want a long engagement and we knew what we wanted for our wedding. My husband's older brother, Jake, and his now wife, Sandra, had been engaged for 5 years at this time, with no thoughts as to what they even wanted for a wedding and nothing planned. By November of 2019, we had a date, July of 2020, a venue, premarital counseling sessions started, save the dates made and sent out, etc. I was busy. Around that time, late autumn, the women of my husband's family have a tradition of getting together for a girls-only autumn craft day. It's a very white, suburban, live, laugh, love ordeal, but since my family is more reserved and urban, I think it's fun in a kitschy sort of way, and generally have an alright time. This is where I noticed Sandra giving me the evil eye, and even leaving the room whenever my upcoming wedding was discussed by others. She sulked away to a desk in the corner, despite an empty chair at the table next to me. To drown us out, she started playing her music on Pandora, but whenever a song about marriage or weddings came up, she skipped it. I was asked so many questions about how my spouse proposed, the ring, my dress, the venue, and it seemed so harmless and pleasant at the time to talk about it all. I was excited, and everyone, except Sandra, was too. I didn't think too much of all this until Christmas of 2019, since Sandra has never been very warm to me regardless. Last Christmas, I received a tote bag with my to-be-married name, Mrs. Blank, printed on it. It made me so happy to see it. I felt like I was part of the family at that moment, until I looked up at Sandra. Sandra crossed her arms and legs, then scoffed loudly as she rolled her eyes at Jake. Jake then gave me the dirtiest look I've ever seen. It was malicious. When my spouse was busy chatting with members of his family, Jake came up to me to badmouth my spouse. His car isn't as nice as Jake's car. Jake's house is bigger than my spouse's house, etc. He doesn't talk to me long anyway, thankfully, since usually gets bored when I don't side with his catty comments. He even gets angry if I bring up how responsible my spouse is with money, after he gets done belittling how shabby our possessions are compared to his and Sandra's. This is usually because Jake and my spouse were raised by their narcissistic mother to compete for her affections constantly. Jake was always the emotionally spoiled golden child who could do no wrong, and my spouse was the scapegoat. At age 2, my spouse's mother told him the divorce she had just gotten from his dad was his fault. Growing up, Jake was encouraged to join in picking on my spouse as well. My spouse still has permanent hearing damage in one of his ears from Jake slapping him upside the head so much. 2 days later, Jake called my spouse to say he and Sandra were now getting married. The wedding was to be just 3 months before our wedding, on my birthday, at a venue nearly identical to our venue, and the venue was at the town my spouse and I had gotten engaged. The best part, only my spouse was invited. I was specifically excluded. My spouse never once thought of abandoning me on my birthday for their tacky knockoff wedding. Jake yelled at us on the phone and said he couldn't believe how unsupportive we are and how we need to be happy for him and Sandra. To this day, we have not spoken. To this day, my spouse says he no longer has a brother. Their narcissistic mother called my spouse an a-hole for not being there for Jake and Sandra. He is very close to cutting ties with her now, too. The family hates me, and my scapegoat spouse for sure, now more than ever. I tried so hard to be pleasant and polite, so this confuses and hurts so much. Since virus hit the world not long after the knockoff jealousy wedding took place, my spouse and I didn't get the wedding we planned anyway. We had a simple courthouse wedding with just a couple very close people just before everything shut down. It still hurts so much to see my wedding ripped off and then denied to me. I will never forgive Jake, Sandra, or the narcissist mother-in-law who everyone agrees most likely had a hand in helping to plan the cruel knockoff wedding. Recently, my husband's grandma has passed away, and he was very close to her. His grandma raised him since his narcissistic mother didn't want the scapegoat in her house, but would not allow my husband's dad to have custody either. I have to go to a memorial service for her in less than 2 weeks. Narcissistic mother-in-law, golden child Jake, and mean girl Sandra will be there along with all the family members who probably take their side. I want to be there for my husband since he deeply loved his grandma, and I plan on going to support him. He understands if I hang out on the sidelines and keep to myself the whole time. Still, even the thought of going and seeing such evil people again keeps me up all night with panic attacks. I just want to feel better, but nothing has ever hurt me like this before. Edit for update. Those saying some of my husband's family will see Jake and Sandra for what they are do give much-needed perspective as well. I do remember a few of my husband's aunts asking why I wasn't invited to the wedding. Jake and Sandra backpedaled hard and told everyone I was invited. I wish I had recorded the conversation we had on the phone where they specifically said I couldn't come and they wouldn't make room for just one more person. They lied like a rug when confronted by family and said we didn't go because we were jealous of them. OP needs to remember that the best revenge is a life well lived. OP's bitterness will only hurt OP and no one else, and OP can find consolation in the fact that they're broken people who can never be truly happy. It's not easy, but OP can let all this go and live the life she deserves. Lemon Lime Aardvark says, well, Jake and Sandra just suck. But of course, this comes as no surprise. Copying the wedding that you wanted to have because they're so vacuous and useless that they can't come up with anything original on their own. Cramming it in before yours, because of course they would, so that it would seem like you were copying them. Having it on your birthday and excluding you, forcing your husband to declare loyalties, and also royally playing themselves, because now their anniversary is on the birthday of someone they obstinately hate. I mean, they really are pathetic, making this the look-at-me hill that they die on. But then that's what these sort of a-holes do. Don't let their BS beat you down. That's what they want. Tropics and Caffeine says, do not give them this power over you. Next year, when, hopefully, all this is over, you and your husband do a vow renewal. Many people are doing that, in a place that is just you and him. Do not let the family know about it until it is done. Or, tell them about it, but tell them a different location. So let's say you plan a trip to renew your vows in Hawaii. Tell them a venue in Florida and see if they show up there. Never invite them, but let them think it is at a certain spot at a certain time. Silent Walkaway says, they're obviously jealous of you, so I say give them everything to be jealous of. Have a great marriage. Pretend you don't notice their BS at all. Act happy for them whenever they do this crap. Don't you see you've already won? It'll drive them nuts. I want to start by giving some context to my family and our relationships, because this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's also about the toxic dynamics that have festered in my family for years. I, 35 female, have been married to my husband, Ryan, 38 male, for 7 years. We met through mutual friends, and for the longest time, I thought he was my soulmate. Our marriage has had its challenges, especially over the past 2 years as we've struggled with infertility. Trying to have a child has been one of the most emotionally draining experiences of my life. I felt like a failure, despite Ryan reassuring me that it wasn't my fault. But looking back now, I realize his reassurances were just words, empty promises meant to placate me while he pursued something else entirely. Now let's talk about my sister, Emily, 29 female. Growing up, Emily and I had a tumultuous relationship. She was the baby of the family, the charismatic, bubbly one who always knew how to charm her way out of trouble. I was the responsible, quiet sibling who followed the rules, helped with chores, and picked up the slack whenever Emily decided to shirk her responsibilities. Despite our differences, I always tried to support Emily. When she got married to her husband, Jack, 32 male, 3 years ago, I threw her a lavish bridal shower and helped her plan her wedding. I wanted her to be happy. Jack seemed like a good guy, and I genuinely thought they were a great match. Little did I know what was going on behind the scenes. About 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, my mom invited me over for coffee. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her mug and avoiding eye contact. Finally, after an agonizing silence, she said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think Ryan is having an affair with Emily. It felt like the ground had fallen out from under me. I asked her how she could possibly know something like that, and she explained that she had overheard them talking during a family gathering. She couldn't make out all the details, but it was clear from their hushed tones and the way they were acting that their relationship wasn't innocent. My mom said she hadn't confronted them because she didn't want to cause a scene, but thought I deserved to know. I was stunned. I asked my mom to repeat herself, thinking I must have misunderstood. But she confirmed it. She said she was 100% sure my husband and my sister had been having an affair. At first, I didn't believe her. Ryan and I might have had our struggles, but he loved me, didn't he? And Emily, sure, she could be selfish and attention-seeking, but betraying me like this? It felt unthinkable. But then, the pieces started to fall into place. Ryan had been distant lately, claiming he was working late more often than usual. He was overly protective of his phone and would get defensive if I asked him a simple question about his day. After the initial wave of anger, I decided not to confront Ryan or Emily immediately. I needed proof. If I was going to destroy my marriage, I wanted to do it with all my ducks in a row. I needed evidence for divorce. I wanted to be well prepared. I was so angry, I wanted to take him to the cleaners. I started paying closer attention to Ryan's behavior, checking his phone when I could, noting his comings and goings, and piecing together the inconsistencies in his excuses. Sure enough, there were late-night texts to a number saved under work, sudden emergencies that took him out of the house at odd hours, and vague answers whenever I pressed him for details. I knew I would eventually confront Ryan, but I wanted to wait until the right moment. That moment came sooner than I expected. Our family has a tradition of Thanksgiving where everyone takes turns saying what they're thankful for. It's usually a nice moment, but this year, it turned into a nightmare. My parents hosted the dinner, as they always do, and the whole family was there. Ryan, Emily, Jack, aunts and uncles, our cousins, and even some extended relatives. I was determined to keep my calm. When it came time for the thankful tradition, people went around the table sharing their gratitude. When it was Emily's turn, she stood up, placed a hand on her stomach, and smiled. "I'm thankful for the new life growing inside me," she announced. The room erupted in congratulations. My parents were ecstatic, clapping and tearing up. Jack looked confused but thrilled, clearly thinking the baby was his. But Ryan froze. For a split second, his eyes darted to Emily, and I caught it. That fleeting glance was all the confirmation I needed. When it was my turn, I couldn't hold back. My anger boiled over. I stood up, raised my glass, and said, "Well, I'm thankful for my husband getting my sister pregnant." The room went silent. What happened next was pure chaos. My dad shouted, "What the hell are you talking about?" My mom's face turned ghostly white. Jack looked from Emily to me, his face contorted in confusion and horror. Emily burst into tears, and Ryan stammered something about how I had misunderstood. "You don't get to gaslight me, Ryan," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "I know everything." Ryan didn't say a word. Emily, through her sobs, tried to deny it, but her reaction only made things worse. Jack demanded answers, yelling at Emily to tell the truth. She couldn't even look at him. Jack stormed out, and Emily chased after him, sobbing and begging him to just listen. Ryan tried to pull me aside, but I wasn't having it. "We're done," I told him. "You and Emily can deal with the mess you've created, but I'm out." Then I grabbed my things and left. I just couldn't bear the tension anymore. I came back home, had more wine, and went to sleep. I woke up to tons of missed calls from my parents. When I called them back, I expected to hear how sorry they are, etc. But I heard something that hurt more than my husband's and sister's affair. Instead of supporting me, they turned on me. "How could you say something like that in front of everyone?" my dad yelled. "You've humiliated your sister." My mom chimed in. "You don't even know for sure if the baby is Ryan's. What if it's Jack's? You've ruined Thanksgiving over an assumption." "An assumption?" I shot back. "Then let Emily or Ryan deny it. Let them take a paternity test. I'm willing to bet the results won't surprise me." They kept accusing me of being vindictive and cruel for airing dirty laundry in front of the family. My dad said I owed Emily an apology for embarrassing her. Jack hasn't spoken to Emily since that night, and from what I've heard, he's staying with a friend while he figures out his next steps. I've already contacted a lawyer, and I'm preparing to file for divorce. Ryan is begging me to talk this out, but I'm done. My parents, meanwhile, are furious with me. They've made it clear that they blame me for ruining Thanksgiving and humiliating Emily. My mom even said, "Emily's the one carrying a baby. How do you think all this stress is affecting her?" As for me, I'm heartbroken. I didn't create this mess. Ryan and Emily did. But somehow, I'm the one being treated like the villain for exposing the truth. So, Reddit. Was I wrong for revealing the truth during Thanksgiving dinner? Should I have waited for a private moment? Are you kidding me? OP's sister had an affair with OP's husband, and OP's parents expect OP to apologize? That's next level insanity. OP didn't ruin Thanksgiving. They did, by betraying OP in the most disgusting way possible. Frankly, I'm impressed OP kept her cool for as long as she did. If anything, OP handled this with more grace than they deserved. OP needs to let them stew in their mess. She definitely doesn't owe anyone an apology. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. Your parents are clearly enabling Emily's behavior, which is probably why she felt entitled to betray you in the first place. I can't believe they're blaming you for exposing the truth, instead of holding her and your husband accountable. You did nothing wrong. In fact, you should consider going low or no contact with your family for your own sanity. They've shown you where their loyalties lie, and it's not with you. Everyone sucks here. Hear me out. Emily and Ryan are obviously the biggest a-holes here. What they did is unforgivable. But I think you could have handled the Thanksgiving situation differently. Dropping a bomb like that in front of everyone might have felt satisfying in the moment, but it gave your parents and Emily ammunition to paint you as the bad guy. If you had confronted them privately, it might have been easier to keep control of the narrative. That said, I completely understand why you reacted the way you did. Betrayal like that can make anyone lose their cool. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Your husband and sister betrayed you. Your parents are gaslighting you, and now you're being treated like the villain for simply stating the truth. The audacity of your parents to suggest you apologize is infuriating. You've been through enough. Don't let them manipulate you into thinking you're at fault. Focus on yourself, finalize the divorce, and consider cutting off toxic people. You deserve better than this. Update. Hi Reddit. Here's a quick update since so many of you have asked what happened after the Thanksgiving debacle. I officially divorced Ryan. It wasn't easy emotionally, but it was the best decision for my sanity and future. I've moved into a new place and am working on rebuilding my life. Ryan tried to reconcile a few times, but I refused to entertain the idea. There's no coming back from what he did. As for Emily, she gave birth to a baby girl a few weeks ago. Jack, her husband, had a paternity test done, and it turns out he is the biological father. Despite that, Jack is moving forward with the divorce. He told her he couldn't trust her anymore, and he doesn't want to stay in a marriage where there's no respect. He plans to co-parent their daughter, but made it clear that their romantic relationship is over. Now, my parents are blaming me for everything. They've said I destroyed Emily's marriage, and that it's my fault her child will grow up in a broken home. According to them, if I had handled things privately, none of this would have happened. It's frustrating and hurtful, but I've come to terms with the fact that they'll always prioritize Emily, no matter how wrong she is. For now, I've limited contact with my parents and Emily. I'm focusing on healing, therapy, and surrounding myself with people who actually care about me. Thank you all for your support. It's been a lifeline during this incredibly difficult time. I found out my husband cheated on me and has a 3-year-old daughter recently. The woman only told me because my husband was ignoring her, and she thought telling me would force him to acknowledge and support their daughter. My in-laws asked me if I would be okay with them financially supporting the girl if she is my husband's, and I told them I didn't know. They said they wouldn't help her unless I was comfortable with it, and that I should take my time to think about it. I've since told everybody I want no part in any of this, and I would like to focus on my children instead while my husband deals with his own mess, so they haven't brought it up to me since. The woman contacted me again to tell me my in-laws won't help her because of me, and that she was desperate. I didn't respond, but she kept sending me messages telling me how I was selfish and that I was punishing her daughter who was innocent by not letting my in-laws help them. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, because you're not the reason. This shouldn't be your decision to make. It's their money and their son, and they can do whatever they want with it. Make it clear that it's not for you to affirm or deny their financial support, and keep staying out of it. It's crappy of them to put the onus on you in the first place. This is not for you to deal with on top of being married to a cheater. You don't need to carry this burden too. I'm sorry. Why is she contacting you instead of the appropriate government agency to start getting proper child support payments going? This isn't your issue to solve, not the a-hole. I imagine rich in-laws. She probably thinks she can get more out of guilt-tripping them instead of getting legal child support from hubby through the system. OP clarified in comments she's currently staying with the in-laws and that they have always been close. Not the a-hole. It isn't the grandparents' responsibility to support the child. It is the parents'. The mother should not be depending on or even expecting financial support from anyone but the father. Not the a-hole. Where the bloody hell is your husband? What's he doing to take responsibility for both the child, who is innocent in this, and with you and what it means for your relationship? Why are his parents even involved? You should not be cornered into taking any part of his responsibility by his lack of action, by the other woman who cheated with your husband, who are trying to help, but would do better to step back. I don't know what he's doing. I don't want to see or talk to him, and he won't come near me as long as his dad is here. His dad is also my godfather, and I'm very close to them, so I told them. That's why they're involved. To give some background information, my stepfather came into my life when I was around 6. I'm 24 now. He wasn't a bad person per se. I know he always treated my mother well, but he never made an effort to support me growing up, and as a result, we've never been much of a part of each other's lives. I moved out of their house 6 years ago to move away for college, and I have since bought my own house and have lived here for 2 years. Well, earlier this year, he was diagnosed with cancer, and within the last couple months has started going for treatment for it. Just a couple of days ago, while visiting them for the holidays, my mother pulled me aside to ask for monetary help north of $10,000 to help pay for his medical fees. I have a well-paying salaried job, but I also have around $100,000 in student loan debt still to pay off, as well as my mortgage on my house. I've been living very frugally the past couple of years to try and throw as much money as possible at the debt, giving up a lot of freedoms for myself as a result. My mother knows this. I don't feel comfortable paying for his medical bills when 1. It's not really my responsibility. 2. He never made an effort to be a positive figure in my life. And 3. I still have a massive amount of debt that I'm trying to get out of for the benefit of myself. I haven't yet told her that I don't plan on helping money-wise, but I think she already thinks I've agreed to help somehow. I'm not sure how to tell her my position without her and the rest of the family thinking I'm an a-hole for refusing to help a family member with cancer. So I'm just trying to get a general opinion on if I'm the a-hole, and if not, how I should help my family in ways other than giving money. Not the a-hole. Just be very upfront with her. Tell her you have your own debt that you are paying off, and you just don't have the extra money to give her $10,000. I'd leave out the part about you not being very close with him. It might leave your mom with the impression that you could easily choose to help her. You just don't want to because you don't like your stepdad. Not the a-hole. Some might disagree, but listen, cancer is a drag. It really sucks. You're not the a-hole by any means for not helping out with the finances, as it isn't your burden to bear. But I don't think your mother is an a-hole either. She's clearly terrified that she's going to lose a loved one and is desperate. I've been living very frugally the last couple years to try and throw as much money as possible at the debt, giving up a lot of freedoms for myself as a result. My mother knows this. Yes, she does, but she's talking about a human life. To her, that life is worth everything. She loves this person. Please don't forget that, and let her down easy if you really don't want to pay it. But for most people, being out of debt a few years earlier isn't worth the same as a human life. I accept it's your money, but money can be earned and re-earned and spent. Lives cannot be saved once they're lost. This is why I see your mother's side completely and truly empathize. I will admit your post comes across a little bit cold, but I don't know whether he treated you badly in the past or not. Your relationship with him is yours to understand and feel how you like about it. I wouldn't personally call not making an effort treating you badly, or a thing that warrants not helping eradicate his cancer. I also fully respect that it's your money. You've saved it and you want to go on in life. The only true a-hole here is the American healthcare system. I have 4 children, 2 bio children who are 17 and 15, and 2 stepchildren who are 12 and 11. I was a widower when I met my current wife 7 years ago. My first wife had passed 3 years before meeting my current wife, and she was a single mom whose ex was not in the kids' lives at all. So they came to see me as dad, and I loved them. But I admit my love for them did come at the expense of my kids somewhat, something that only truly stuck with me recently, when my bio children told me they were done with any and all family time, that we were not a family, that they wanted to go live with their grandparents in another state. I was shocked. I had thought I had done a good job of being there for them and providing them with a family. We talked. They explained how to them, my wife and stepchildren were not people they loved and considered family, and that by never getting time with just me, they felt like they had lost their whole family, that they did not consider it family time when we were all together. My daughter told me she was pretty much ready to leave and had even tried to graduate early, but due to her learning disability, she was unsuccessful. It was a huge wake-up call for me. I had sat and discussed what was going on with my wife, and I told her I wanted to take my son and daughter away for the weekend, just the 3 of us. It wasn't until I got back that my wife told me my stepchildren had told her they were very upset, and she decided it was unfair that I left them behind and made them feel like they were less my kids. They never said anything to me before when I spoke to them, but when I got back, they told me that they felt it was unfair and that I should be their real dad too. I explained we could do something just the 3 of us, but that my son and daughter needed some time with just me. I'm making much more of an effort to make my bio kids feel like they have not lost me and that they can be honest and open with me. My wife wanted to do something with my bios while I spent time with my stepkids since we got back. My bio kids weren't interested, which turned into my wife being very upset and telling me again that I did the wrong thing taking my bios for the weekend, but not my stepchildren. She said I showed my kids that she and my stepkids, are not family. I told her I could not change their feelings after the damage I did. If they feel like they haven't lost me, they could have a better relationship with them as well. But I told her firmly I did what I needed to do for my relationship with my older two children. She said it should never come at the expense of the younger kids. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but your wife certainly is. It seems to me that while you were gone over the weekend with your kids, that she stirred the pot with her kids, and that is why they're now saying what they're saying. You absolutely did the right thing, OP. Because if not, once they were able to leave, they would, and go no contact with you. Let her know that the way her kids feel about one weekend is what your children have been feeling for the last 7 years. You did good stepping up for your stepkids, but it was at the cost of your relationship with your kids, and you're fixing that now. Also, she can't force time with your kids because currently they feel spiteful towards her, because in their minds, she stole your time from them in favor of a new family with her, and they're not wrong. Stay firm with your wife, and I advise therapy, counseling for everyone involved, either group and solo. Keep listening to your kids' feelings and make sure they feel heard. Not the a-hole. It goes the other way too. Your relationship with your younger kids and wife should not come at the expense of your older children. I feel like there is a larger problem going on here that you still may not be seeing. I think your wife may be prioritizing the younger children over the older children and may have been doing it for some time, getting you to do the same. Your bio children did not start feeling this way overnight. It sounds like it has been festering for a long time. The fact that your wife doesn't approve of your attempt to repair the damaged relationship with the older two is concerning. You need to have some hard conversations with them to find out how they are feeling about the 3 people that have taken priority over them for years. What is actually going on between them and your wife? Something is if they have no interest in time alone with her. I'm a 19-year-old girl, and my dad is marrying his girlfriend of 5 years. She wants me to be one of the bridesmaids, as it'd look great to have me up there. I'm not particularly close to her, but we're civil, so whatever, right? I agreed, telling her I'd be happy to do so, and to let me know if she needed any help with wedding things. I got a call from her last week, telling me that she wants me to go to her hairdresser's with her so my hair can be made a more natural color, like my natural brown, or even a deeper chestnut, as she thought that'd look nice on me. I was confused by this, and asked her what she was talking about. She told me I'd stand out too much in the bridal party with my hair. I have waist-length hair that is ombre, of purple and pink. My hair has been this color for the past 3 years, so it's not like I sprung it on her out of nowhere, just before the wedding. I told her I wasn't about to ruin the style I spent a lot of money and time to upkeep, just for her wedding, and she implied that at 19, I was getting too old for such a childish style, and it was really for my own good, and reminded me how I'd told her if she needed anything for the wedding, to let me know. She then told me this is what she needed. I was shocked by this, and pointed out I'd meant something like picking up party favors for the reception, dress fittings and the like, not changing my hair. I told her I wouldn't be doing this, sorry, and if she felt this way that I just wouldn't be her bridesmaid so I didn't stand out too much. She was upset with me, and the call ended rather coldly. I've had my dad phoning me every so often since then trying to talk me into changing my hair. He's implying it's not a big deal, and he'll pay to fix my hair after the wedding. That's not the point. It'd be hell to get my hair back to this, and bad to recolor it so soon anyway, and I don't see why I have to change my style for her. I can just be a guest. Though, honestly, I'm not even wanting to be that now. He told me I had to be her bridesmaid, as she told everyone I would be, and how I'd embarrass her in front of her friends and family if I refused now, as they'd think we're not close. I pointed out to him that we're not, and it's on her if she made it seem like we were to people she knows. I told him that if I had to be a bridesmaid, she could accept my hair as it is, or I'd just stay home. I don't know. Maybe it's my experience with weddings, as I've never been to one before, but surely this is too much for them to ask of me. Maybe I should just cave in, as my dad has said he'll pay to fix my hair after, but the idea of going through all the work to fix it and the damage it could cause is upsetting me. Should I just suck it up for my dad's sake? My mom is pissed over this and has been fighting with my dad on this matter. No, you're not the a-hole. They can invite you, The real you or not. You can accept their invitation or not. What they don't get to do is invite an imaginary alternative version of you that they'd rather have instead, and then insist that you fake it. Not the a-hole. The people getting married can ask someone to wear their hair up or down, or wear certain colors, but asking hair to be cut or dyed is way too much. Also, as a woman in her 40s with purple hair, it's not childish to have hair colored whatever shade of the rainbow you like. I've refused jobs that want me to dye my hair. I'd happily refuse to participate in a wedding if doing so required me to dye my hair. Not the a-hole. It is too much to ask from a person. She and your dad knew going into this what your hair looked like. If either of them had this problem, they should have asked you if you'd consider changing your hair before they made you a part of the bridal party. People these days expect crazy stuff from their wedding guests, and I just don't get it. I worked as a server in university, and my daughter worked at Starbucks and a local restaurant when she was in school. I know how servers earn their money. My father-in-law invited us out for supper for my mother-in-law's birthday. We went to a nice Greek restaurant in his neighborhood. The meal was fantastic, and my father-in-law said it was on him. Cool, my kids are well-behaved and know not to go crazy on their grandparents' money. I've known my in-laws for almost 20 years now. I know he doesn't tip, so I always bring cash and tip whenever we dine out with them. So after the meal, as we were leaving, I checked the bill and dropped 20% on top of his cash, more or less. I guess he accidentally left too much money once and made a big deal about getting his change because the server came running out with the tip I left. My father-in-law knew how he paid, and it didn't include a $50 bill. He blew his top. Saying I disrespected him by doing this, I was implying that he was cheap after he took out my family to a nice restaurant. I was just trying to do right by the server. I wasn't trying to be a hero or a jerk. I just know that we took up a table for almost 2 hours, and she deserved a tip. My wife is mad at me for upsetting her father. My daughter gave me a hug and said I was right. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I'm in Canada. Apparently this is a normal thing in the States. I'm pretty sure there was a Friends episode where this happened. Not the a-hole. Your father-in-law's an a-hole. Not the a-hole. In the future, it may be better to say something like, "Since you covered dinner, I thought I would cover the tip." Even if he's resistant to tipping. A-hole. At least the point of the gesture was in the ether. Not the a-hole. I think it's a boomer thing. My dad rarely tips. If he does, it's like $5. I guess when he was born in 1948, $5 would have been generous. He's been told how embarrassing it is that he tips so little, but doesn't change. We always pay the tip when he takes us out. He gets miffed, but whatever. If your father-in-law is embarrassed, that means he knows he's wrong and is doing it anyway.